Welcome back to Getting Real, the show where we move past the highlight reel and talk about what actually shapes the human behind the success. Today, I'm sitting down with Randy Tate, CEO and co-founder of iFlip, a fintech company using AI to make investing smarter and more accessible. But before Randy was leading a tech revolution, he was a farm kid from Northern California, the kind who learned grit before he ever learned business. His journey is a masterclass in resilience, reinvention, and redefining what success means. Randy, thanks for being here.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. So, Randy, when people hear your story from the fields of California to building an AI investing platform, it sounds like a massive leap. Who were you before all that?
If we rewind that, you're right. I was raised on a farm in Northern California. People that aren't from California think it's just beaches and sunshine. It's actually more farmland than anything. And I grew up in a world where you got up, you went to work, then you went to school, then you played football, then you went back to work. And that was the normal. And everybody grew up that way. I thought I had no differentiator from the kids that grew up in the city. Not that one's better or worse, just different experiences. But it did lead me to want to go to college. First member in my family to go to college. And I really enjoyed sports and football, which that's what led me into football, wrestling also. That was where I thought my career path would be until after about 9 years in the education field with the bureaucracy around teaching and coaching and all of that. That's where I started my entrepreneurial journey.
So, when you look back, what values were planted back on the farm that still guide you today?
Well, it's interesting if you're in a normal, regular job and you don't feel like going to work, you just don't go, or you call in sick. But when you got, you know, things to water, peaches to pick, animals to feed, you don't have that option. So you said gritty earlier. I prefer resilient, consistent, persistent behavior, doing the same thing consistently and persistently is not an option. It's required to have any modicum of success. Because if you don't go water the pigs, and it's 100-degree day, they die. So it's a little different animal. And I carry that workspace I keep that mentality, and that's just the way I approach every problem at iFlip, everything we do that comes through me is rooted in that behavior.
Talk to me about that jump when you made the leap from sort of dealing with bureaucracy to saying, I'm over this and I'm just going to become an entrepreneur. Talk to me about those early days.
Yeah, it's funny. I was a head football coach, head wrestling coach. I have a master's degree in education. So I've got all the little credentials hanging on the wall. And I'm at the top of my food chain, if you will, in the teaching industry in the state of California. And with all of that and teaching summer school, the whole summer's off and weekends off, that didn't work. That's not how I did it. I worked 7 days a week, took a week off for vacation, maybe went camping, and then that would be it. But then it just almost overnight, like with the flip of a switch, I realized that I'm making 70 grand in California. I can only help so many people as a teacher. And the only real way to provide anything back to society in the world is to make more money. It's not as much about the money. It's about what you're able to do with money. I also saw a blistering problem in one specific industry, the sporting goods distribution industry. And it bugged me because teams got no service at all. Now we're talking back in the 90s. Teams got no service. They didn't get help. They had no way to do it. So I had some different ideas about ways to service the team sports industry. I'm like, I can make this easier. I have a knack for making things better, easier, and less expensive. And that's what we did. The gentleman that sold all my sporting goods equipment to me, I picked his brain, picked their distributors' brains, and then asked him to join me and said, let's start our own company. And we did. We just jumped in. Literally, I knew nothing about business. I could tell you some wonderful stories about tax and how I did it wrong. That's probably for a different day. But I learned that if you can solve a problem and you are willing to work, you can be a successful entrepreneur.
So you're basically in the business of problem solving. And then take me on the journey from solving that problem to then making your way to iFlip. Like,
Yeah.
tell me the short story there.
I'll give you the short ones. After 5 years in the sporting goods space, large publicly traded company had tried to follow right behind us and penetrate that space, but we had it locked up. So in 5 years, by the end of our fifth year, we exited to a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company. That was step one. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be, I knew quickly I would not like the corporate life. But I had some contracts. I had 3 years. I had to stay there and work, which I did, help them grow, took that little division from 1 million to 10 million over that time. And then also during that time, because I was getting bored, I started getting invited to come speak. You sold a company, come speak. You know how to start a business, come speak. So as a teacher, and a football coach, I don't mind being on front of the stage. So then I started going around speaking, teaching, started a little business doing that. Well, one of our clients happened to be a big software company. So that software company liked what we were doing. Next step was they acquired us over there. So I left the other one, moved into that one, and was an executive there for 3 years. During that time, that's when I met my business partner, Kelly. And while I was at that company, I was the executive in charge of, small business leadership, development, execution, planning, the whole realm of that whole customer base. And when I got there, they were a $60 million company. When I left, they were a $100 million company. And so they were growing, doing great. It was an awesome experience. Then I met my business partner, and the current co-founder of Flip. He's a Wall Street guy. I'm agnostic to the business. The fundamentals are the same. I say this all the time. If you can coordinate 55 high school kids on a football field, you can coordinate anything. And it's coordinate a business, And so he said to me, and this was the big jump. He said, Randy, Wall Street passes all the risk of investing to Main Street. And the Main Street investor who's either using an app like a Robinhood, which does nothing to help you, it's a cool tool if you know what you're doing. Most don't. That's one way they take advantage. But the biggest way is through the financial advisory and planning world. They set up people to be in long-term buy and hold scenarios that does work over 25 years. It always does. It will. The stock market will always go up. They're not wrong. However, this is the statement he said that cued my brain. He said, if you believe BlackRock and JP Morgan are investing institutional assets into the products they're giving the public, you don't understand how the game is played.
Right.
And that intrigued me. I'm like, say more. And this is a guy that had just been living in St. Thomas, privately managing hundreds of millions of dollars of money. I'm like, okay, this guy knows probably what he's talking about. So over the course of a few months, looking at things like Robinhood and, Webull was new at that time, and what the traditional Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguards, all those guys were doing, there was no innovation in the industry. It was just new lipstick, same pig. And
Right.
my brain went, what if we could take my partner's brain, automate it, put it on everybody's phone and laptop, automate it, and stay a SaaS company? That was literally where it started. We started with the intention to be better around risk and performance, to be less expensive, and to be easier to use. And that's what we do. And so that's the evolution to where we're at. That's where we started. Now, I'll give you more as we go along, but that got us to the starting point of our company.
I'm going to interject here for a second, just because my personal journey being my past in the pension space and as a personal financial advisor, like the course of my career was shaped on the fact that as I learned more, I was like, oh my gosh, there's like better ways to invest. Just the internal fees that are built into a lot of the mutual funds or the wrap fees that they put. on these accounts that eat away over time, 10, 20, 30 years. You're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of fees that are getting sucked out of people's IRAs, Ks, taxable accounts, however you want to see it. And then the other thing that's interesting is you mentioned the hedge fund side of things. You can talk about an indexed sort of portfolio, but then you don't even have access to a lot of the investments where the real money is made on the
That's
private
right.
side. So I'm really interested to learn more about this selfishly, because I've always said there's got to be a better solution other than just indexing.
Yeah, there is now, and the advent of AI is the biggest piece of it. Now, we've been using AI since 2017. So it's not a big new buzzword. Also, from my research, not saying 100%, obviously you can fact check this, but from what I can tell, there is no retail level or even advisor level AI available today for managing the stock market, the equities and ETFs. They claim it. You see it everywhere, but all they're doing is using algorithms, which the same algorithms they've been using since the 80s. There's no difference. There's no
So
evolution.
can you unpack that a little bit? Just how is your AI different, and just
Yeah.
layman's terms?
Yeah. First off, it's actually AI. We'll start there. What's that mean? The differentiator is simply this. Let's give everybody a simple education. An algorithm, a mathematical algorithm, which is what Wall Street uses today, is simply a math formula created by a person and then executed automatically by a computer. Let me give you an example. You could set one up that said, every time Apple goes up $1, buy it. You can program your computer. Your computer can connect to the exchange. There's plenty of platforms out there that do this. So we'll let you do your own. And then every time Apple goes up, the computer will buy you a share of Apple. That's a simple algorithm. For that algorithm to change, and for it to change from every time it goes up $1 to every time it goes up $2, a human has to go in and change the algorithm. AI is also an algorithm, but it's an algorithm that can change its own rules. It doesn't need the human. It learns every single day. We use both. In our platforms, we have what you call a smart folio. It's a bucket of stocks or ETFs. Why is it a smart folio, not a portfolio? Well, because it's smart. Each symbol inside the smartfolio, there's no rebalancing, no buying of this and selling of that. Each one operates independently with the percentage of money it's been allocated inside that smartfolio. Step number one, algorithm. Technicals only, all mathematics, determining risk. We're generally looking 15, 30 days out. That algorithm, before the market opens, makes a decision in or out. Binary. You either own it all or none. And that exists today in other places, but here's where it gets really different. That algorithm reports to the AI. The machine learning sits on top of the algorithm, and that's only one indicator that the machine learning is looking at. It has 210 additional mathematical indicators that it maps for the previous 20 years, every single day before the market opens, to determine the next 15 days of risk. And so those 200, everyone wants to know, well, what are those indicators? And like, well, we need a month, but we could teach them to you. We won't, but we could. It's things like the moving average correlated to the S&P based on, this other moving average times pi plus a flux capacitor. I don't know. That's not my job. I don't do that. We have two people in the back that have built this and that are always training and creating new models. And so then if the agrees with the algorithm, it will let the algorithm execute the way it wants. If not, it will override the algorithm. No
Can
human in
I
the
ask
middle.
a question? I'm sorry, pardon it could be a dumb question. Heading into the year, they had the whole issue with the tariffs, right? And so talk to me about how the algorithm would account for something like that.
Oh, easy. We stepped out of the market, literally.
Okay, and
The,
that's where
the algorithm.
that's where the personal element comes in, or
Oh no, the AI stepped. It's all automated. The AI controls
it's
it
all
all.
automated, and so
The
there was too
AI,
much risk.
the AI took our clients out of the market because there was too much risk. Now we were still in some. So we have one smartfolio called Big Tech. You can probably guess what's in it. It's the Mag 7. They were down about 18, 20 during that first quarter. We were down about 6. You take 2022, same portfolio, down 30.
Right,
We were down
right,
5.
and go back to 2008, and it's like, imagine if you could have gotten out, not at the very top, but at least before the whole thing fell out, you'd have twice the amount of money if you got out and got back in and were able to time that. But
That's the
who can do?
idea.
Nobody has a crystal ball like that.
We do. It's not
And
perfect.
that's the power of this technology,
That
right?
is the power of the tech. It will rarely sell at the high. It will rarely buy at the low. It's going to, what we call predate, eat the middle. And
That's all you
we
want.
often say, it's what we want. We often say, even if we only match the S&P 500, but we never go down more than 10% off your all-time high, and you skip those big volatile moments and you pay a lot less in fees, you're going to be way ahead just by default. Since we've turned on the AI against the S&P 500, we're about 100% ahead of it, like I said, with a beta under 0.5.
I'm so glad that something like this exists. Thank you for doing this.
It
But yeah, it doesn't seem like it's rocket science to one degree, but it is rocket science to another degree, because you have to have an understanding of how the market works, where the real money's made. Then strategies sounds a little bit like adaptive investing that sort of rides the 6 month sort of trend, or so you're constantly riding the wave versus
definitely trend heavy. I'll tell you on the big signals, the Apples, the Facebooks, the S&P 500, NASDAQ, Dow, those guys. Those guys are so algorithmically traded by the institutions. They use algorithms. That's the one with the human element. So they lag. We predate on those algorithms. Those are what they're doing is a big part of what our AI is monitoring. Now, I also use this analogy a lot, Dan. All AI is not the same. We are not ChatGPT. We're not even a large language model. We're a mathematic finance model that anybody can. You know what else anybody could have done in the 80s? They could coach basketball and they could run the triangle offense. But who's going to do it better? Phil Jackson. Why? Because he had Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. And so we have Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan on our back end. The other
yeah.
gentleman that writes the code back there, he's an IP attorney with a master's degree in machine learning, former CIA, and he's the guy that wrote all the code that eBay uses. It's his IP that eBay still uses today to run their stuff. And so I've got Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen in the back creating stuff that other people just don't have.
All right, so talk to me about this, because I love this concept. Are you sort of direct to consumer with your model, or have you thought about going to institutions to have a sleeve? Could this be something that wraps into other accounts like a Fidelity or a Schwab or a stand?
I'll say this in case they're listening. If Schwab or Fidelity ever want to use our software, they're going to have to write me a very big check. So we're not going there. We are retail based right now, straight to consumer. We're also a SaaS model. We're flat fee oriented. One of the other big problems in the industry is you can't read your statement. Nobody really knows how much they're paying. You mentioned it earlier. You talk
Yeah.
about all those little, 0.4, 0.6, 0.7, those little basis points that sound like nothing. Well, first of all, it's a basis point. Nobody knows what that is. So they don't understand it. So they just assume, oh, hey, my account went up 7%. It should have went up 12
And then throw that in a wrap in a lot of cases, where if they're actively managed funds and then you've got a fund manager, it could be 2.5%.
or more. The average, Harvard did a big study with like 10 different universities about 3 years ago. The average investor using a licensed advisor or planner using mutual funds is almost 6% all in fees on average.
It's why I got out of that business, because I didn't feel like it was right to I didn't
Criminal.
you have an old school. I was the head of retirement for a broker dealer, and a lot of these guys are out there, they're still selling A shares, and then it's a 5% hit up on the front side, right? And
Those
then
front
they'll
loads are
call them a few
brutal.
years later and say, hey, I've got a new fund for you, and guess what, it's another A share, so that they can get that 5% hit. And that's
That's
what the
it.
fiduciary role was doing, was to sort of clean that up. And to a certain extent, that most of the market has moved towards advisory, but advisory is still, like, when you
Same.
when you really break down the value that the average investor is getting for a buy and hold portfolio that's fixed and maybe updated every few years, yeah, it might rebalance, but like at the end of the day, there's not a lot going on there, and those advisors are making $10,000 per client, so there's,
We're moving accounts. We have as little as $500 will work on our software. There's a little philanthropic mold right here to break this
yeah.
industry. I mean, it's the reason we charge $7 a month, whether you got $500 or 500 million, doesn't matter, per account. Guess why? AI runs our back end. I have no more work to do. Why should I charge one guy more than the other guy? So it's the same amount of work. When you look at that, when you say you got, for easy math, we'll say $1 million, or you say 100 grand, we'll say a million. You got $1 million over at an institution being privately managed. And if it's actively managed, probably even more. I'm moving these accounts that are paying $12,000 to $15,000 a year per $1 million they have on our platform, even with brokerage, and our broker charges a flat fee also. You would never pay more than $1,400 a year flat. That's only for accounts that are over $100,000. If you have less than 10,000, you have no brokerage. I want everybody. Our vision of our company is to power everyone to preserve, protect, and grow their wealth. That's why we charge $7 a month, and no brokerage until you get to 10 grand.
Well, I salute you, sir, because that's God's work. There's not enough use in this industry. And it's kind of funny, because as you tell your story, this isn't the industry you grew up in, and you're applying the same problem solving methodology that you've experienced throughout your career, but you're not this guy that's been in the investment space for 30 years, right?
I started this company. I've never invested in the stock market, only real estate, because I believe the game was rigged, but I didn't understand it or know. And then I met Kelly and I started meeting other people in the space, and to like, because it seemed so blatantly obvious to me that it was just too expensive and too risky. I don't want to go to Vegas. I'm not a gambler by nature anyway. So it seems obvious.
Are there asset classes that can be accessed here that you can't get elsewhere? Or I had a really interesting conversation with, he actually runs a quant fund. He's a chief investment officer for a quant fund out of New York. And super interesting conversation. I actually sent it to you, but he looks at the world through the lens of quantum physics. And so he noticed, as a quantum physicist, that the same patterns that happen in nature on a fractal basis happen with options. And
That's
so
interesting.
he only recruits physicists to run this quant fund. But I was talking to him about,
It's awesome.
some people are talking about that we could be at this unique state where real estate is still in a bubble, the stock market could be in a bubble, the bond market could be in a bubble. We're in this really weird place where he didn't say he has a crystal ball and can predict this stuff, but according to sort of some of the predictors that they have, we could be heading towards some sort of bubble. I'm interested to get your take on sort of how this is structured and the defense mechanisms in place for, say, a bubble, a regime change, things that just are not on the typical sort of docket for investment, I
Sure.
guess, strategy.
Well, that's interesting because Kelly, one of the co-founders, was a physics student.
I'll have
That's
to connect you guys.
Yeah. Can connect those guys. That's too tough a
Yeah,
conversation for me. I try to stay out of that stuff. Um, but he ran many quant funds. You know, he ran the risk desk at Deutsche Bank as a quant. That's his whole world is mathematics and physics. Great conversations if you want to understand about every fifth word. But I don't know about the correlation between nature and all that. Logical makes sense. I trust the math. I trust the math. Our math does not say that. Our math says that we're going to continue to melt higher and continue to get all-time highs outside of the 15-day out window now is getting a little fuzzy out there with the AI. We got out of Meta a couple days ago. The AI said too risky, get out. I think it went down a little bit. We got out of the S&P the day that it went down 10% that morning before it opened. We were
yeah, I
out.
remember.
Got back in for one day and came back out, which is very rare behavior. Our AI does not like to trade. It likes to buy and hold and be long. Wants nothing else. It only trades out when it sees risk. Right now, we're heavily in. We are invested in most of the smartfolios. If I was going to tell you what our system says we're going to continue to go up over at least over the next year and a half to 2 years. Regime change might change the game, depending on who wins what. Oddly enough, it's going to change all kinds of things. We'll see what goes on with the businesses in New York and how they react to the extra taxes they're about to receive.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. I think what's also interesting, if you look back at the sort of historical rise of the stock market, a lot of people in the investment space would say you want to buy and hold because you don't want to miss the big days, right? But there's something to be said about missing those 10% swings along the way. If you can not be participating in the downswing on a few 10%
You want the
losses.
numbers? You want the numbers over the last 20 years?
Yeah.
$1 million 20 years ago in the S&P 500. We'll just because that's our benchmark. If you bought and held, you'd have around 5 million bucks today if you didn't change anything. If you missed the 10 best days, like you're talking about, just the 10 best days, that's the only days you missed, you'd have about 2.5 million. So there's truth to missing the up days. However, if you also missed the 10 worst days, along with missing those 10 best days, you'd have 10.5 million.
Really? That's
Missing the
interesting.
down is
So missing
far
the
more
downs
important.
is actually more important than missing the ups. Missing the ups is important, but missing the downs is
You
more
want to stay in
important.
the middle. You want to stay in
Wow.
the middle.
This is awesome. I'm going to be definitely checking out this platform. I had all these questions I thought I was going to ask you, but I'm just having so much fun.
Fire away, man.
I'm going to have to move down on my list here. Okay. So let's talk about, I want to dive back into leadership because you've got that background as the football coach. You know, you can lead, if you can lead 55 teenagers, you can do anything, you said.
Yeah, something like that.
What's the, what's the real secret you learned about leadership? Not in the business books, but being in the locker rooms and growing these businesses and being able to apply this sort of problem solving methodology, saying, hey, it doesn't matter what it is, we're solving problems, and that's what I'm in the business of.
Couple fundamental things that I focus on and try really hard to do. Uh, the word culture gets beat up a lot. The word culture is an interesting animal inside a business. There's a lot of books on it. A lot of people talk about it. Really, at the end of the day, what it boils down to is your team has to be like-minded. They have to be like-minded. They don't have to agree on everything, but they have to be like-minded. Once you have a group of people that are like-minded, you then can lead. If they're not like-minded, you can't lead them. They will undermine you at some point if you don't. That has been proven by company after company after company, industry after industry, coaching jobs by coaching jobs. You must have like-minded. Now my job becomes I've got a group of like-minded people. So now how I refer to that is the right people are on the bus. Now, my job is to make sure they're in the right seat. What seat on that bus are they in? I don't want the 6'8", 300-pound person that runs a, 5'4" 40 playing running back or quarterback or wide receiver. I also don't want the 5'10", 150-pound person playing offensive line. That sounds super simple, but in the business space, it's not that easy because everybody wants the fun, sexy things, you know? And then some people are just deathly afraid of sales. You put the wrong person on the sales floor, or you put them in the wrong presentation room, or you put the grumpy person in customer service. You want the grumpy person in customer service. You want them writing code. You don't need to be talking to people. And that's why I mean all types fit, but then you got to make sure that you're checking in with them all the time. I spend, man, 20% of my time over the week talking to the people on our team. Just, how's it going? What do you think? What do you think? What do you like? What do you don't like? You know, let me be the gossip engine. And then what you notice is that it becomes no gossip. They all are free to say what they want. That takes me to the next step of that. You got to make sure that there's freedom inside the walls. Now we're virtual inside the Zoom walls. You got to have freedom. If you can't, and I'm the CEO, and they all know, they are welcome to call me an ass. Tell me I'm dumb. You know what? As long as you're doing it in a respectful manner that says, "Hey, man, you're going down the wrong path. We need to think about it like this. Have you seen it this way?" And then the biggest key, this is super important. They have to be free to say those things to me. They have to be free to voice their opinions, but then they must be able to disagree and commit. They cannot disagree and commit. They're an outlier and they don't fit in the culture. And a lot of people will say generationally even will disagree and smile and then undermine you to prove their point.
Right.
And so those are about the four main things I do. They're industry agnostic. It doesn't matter if you're a roofing company or you're a farmer or you're running a software company.
But it's funny, there's so many businesses that are not run under those premise.
Oh,
The idea that you can just the CEO says, "Yeah, my door's always open," but the door's not always open and the feedback's not always welcomed and nothing's actually
correct.
done with the feedbacks. It's
Yeah,
sort of like, and just because they bring it to you doesn't mean that they're right either. And that's the idea, is if we decide not to go this way, you're still coming this way, right?
that's the whole idea. You have to be able to disagree and commit. And here's something I found. People, as long as they're heard, if there's trust, they can disagree and commit. As long as they feel heard. If they feel like you're not listening, it's suicide.
It's pretty wild because this all really just, everything that you just said just basically distills down to effective communication, expectation setting. Like, it's very straightforward, but it's like relationship management, which kind of pulls me back to thinking, what were the coaches that you built your philosophy around? And did you have any mentors along the way that shaped your approach to things?
Yeah, of course. You generally, I don't think people garner any level of success without mentorship. My high school football coach, 100% for sure. One of the main reasons I went to college, him and my college wrestling coach, both of those people influenced me in the exact way of what I'm telling you right here. I've heard them say that. I've heard them give speeches to team. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. This is how we do it. And they always had open door policies, had, you know, I'm still friends with those guys for the most part today. And, it's just that it translates. It just translates. And then I have another person who's a mentor. You just made me think about it. I'm looking up at his book right now because it's over there on my bookshelf. His name is Chalmers Brothers. For you people listening, I'll even give him a plug. He wrote a book called Language and the Pursuit of Happiness. It is the most fundamental book and what's taught in it that any business leader could have. Hands down, there's not a better book to read.
Really?
It is that good. When I first read it, I actually tracked him down to coach me. So I've now spoken with him at events. We've been on the same stage together, but he is a full-on mentor.
Cool. I'm gonna build off of that too and just ask, when you're talking to businesses and giving speeches, what's that talk track? What are like the keynotes that you hit on?
The ones I've just walked through, right seat
Yeah.
on the right bus. That analogy has to be true. The ability to disagree and commit amongst your team, also critical and not easy. It sounds simple. It's not that easy to do. And you must be willing to enroll them in the decision-making process. I'm gathering information. I'm working on it as something. We're going to decide something new. I want your opinion. I haven't made a decision yet. That carries so much weight.
I feel like this would be a good framework for a marriage as well.
I don't know. Marriage, I just, whatever the wife wants, she gets.
Happy
She's
wife,
probably
happy life.
she's probably listening right now.
So when you look at the next 12 months for iFlip, what are your aspirations? What are the obstacles that stand in your way to accomplishing your goals?
Well, we're rolling out a B2B version, a version of the software for independent advisors that don't have the same tools the Schwabs and Fidelities have. That's one. We're also rolling out 401ks for small businesses.
That's where my mind went because I'm a institutional guy.
Yeah, we just partnered up with a custodian called the IRA Club. The IRA Club is going to handle all the back end piece of it. We're going to use our software and my network and our recruiting to bring on businesses. And when we bring on those businesses, they're going to be able to use our software at a fraction of the cost to manage their 401ks.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Literally.
After spending, I've sat down with 5,000 people to give sort of one-on-one, advisory advice, right? Mhm. One of my big takeaways from that whole experience is that 90% of people, maybe 95% of people just want to be told what to do. They want to be told exactly what to do. They want to set it and forget it. They don't want to learn how the sausage is made.
Nope.
People
They
want
just want,
basic education and understanding of what their money's going into, but they don't care about how the sausage is made. They don't care about the nuances. They just want to, if they can beat the market, great. They don't want to pay too much fees. It's kind of exactly your pitch.
yeah. And a friend of mine who is an RIA, he's an advisor and a planner and all that stuff. He's the one that convinced me to make a version for them. He said, doesn't matter how cheap you are. There's some people that just don't want to do anything. And those guys, we're going to charge them and we're going to do it. Why don't you let us use your software? So
Well,
I agreed. He's right. If we truly do want to help the masses, then that's a viable channel.
yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so let me ask you a couple last questions. Any other, outside of your friend's book, any other book recommendations that fly off to you?
Yeah, Language in the Pursuit of Happiness, number one. The traditional ones, Who Moved My Cheese? Everybody should read that. It's the easiest read in the world. You can read it in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It so resonates. It's the best simple little book ever.
I might be due for a reread of Who Moved My Cheese.
Yeah. Um, and then Fresh Eyes, book called Fresh Eyes. It's about, I'm trying to remember the author's name. I'm trying to look for it right now. I can't find it. It's about listening to people that are new. People that are new have a different observation than people that have been there a while. That's both customers and employees. You got about a 30 to 60-day window where you're going to get a different perspective of what's going on. And if you can just be conscious enough to listen to it. And then on the investing side, for people that want to invest, I would tell them to go read the book, The Psychology of Money. It's interesting how people will invest in crazy things or will do crazy things to try and get what they don't need. What was it? Gupta was his last name. He was CEO at McKinsey, I believe. McKinsey? No, Goldman. And he uses information at Goldman to tell his hedge fund buddy what to do. guy's worth $100 million, and to make an extra 5 million bucks, lost it all. But, don't risk what you have and need to get what you don't have and don't need.
This has been awesome. I still have a couple more questions that I want to get out before we got a couple
Okay.
more minutes here. So you've reinvented yourself multiple times: farm kid, athlete, teacher, executive, CEO. If you could sit across the table from your 25-year-old self living off of top ramen, what would you tell that guy?
Keep the persistence, because you don't know what you don't know. And you can't know what you don't know until you have that experience. Literally, don't give up, don't quit. It gets better and better, and it does get better and better. I feel better about me, myself, my family all the time. I'm working just as hard. There's no easy ticket, and running a company like this is not easy. It's a lot of work. But I would tell myself, don't quit, don't give up, keep going. It just gets better. Understanding you don't know what you don't know. I mean, I knew nothing about financial services in 2017. I know quite a bit now.
But you know,
Yeah.
I just love the fact that you're like, well, I'm a problem solver, so we'll figure this out.
Yeah.
There's a problem, and there is a problem. So kudos to you for putting the pieces together to figure that out. When you look back on your life, it seems like you're the type of guy that's just gonna go. It doesn't look like you're the type of guy that wants to sit on a beach and drink a margarita somewhere. But when you look beyond the companies and the success, what do you want to be remembered for?
The amount of people you helped. Literally, that's why I came to the conclusion that being an entrepreneur, making money, allowed me to do more good than being a school teacher. And when I say that, I mean that genuinely. There's a lot of angst in this country around people that want to make money. And we don't talk enough about the people that make money and the good they do. It gets overshadowed because they're worth billions. They should do more. Well, I don't know that that's true or not. What I want to be remembered for is what this country allows us to do. This country is not about free stuff. This country is about free opportunity. Every single person in this country, whether you're from the Hamptons with the silver spoon, or you're from the inner boroughs of LA or New York, Chicago, you still have the same opportunity. Now, it might not be 100% equal opportunity, but you have an opportunity. There's no other place in the world you can accomplish these things than right here in America. And I believe it with my heart. I'm a perfect example of it. You don't have to have a silver spoon. You don't have to, be a movie star, a star athlete. You don't need to have any of that stuff. You can work hard, keep your nose down, and you can produce a quality of life. Does that mean everybody gets to drive a Rolls Royce? Nope. I still drive a pickup truck. Doesn't matter. You got to be able to have the opportunity. I have the opportunity to maybe someday buy a Rolls Royce. I never would, but I could maybe at some time. I can't today, and I don't have a right to it. I'm not entitled. So I want to be remembered for somebody who was not entitled, worked hard for everything he got, and did a whole bunch of good in the world.
Well, it's awesome, Randy. I mean, as somebody that spent a bulk of my career in the space that you've delved into, I can say you are doing God's work. And it's really awesome stuff. I'm really looking forward to learning more about it myself after the show here. But that's all the questions that I have for you today. This was a real masterclass and a really interesting conversation. So thanks for being here.
No, happy to, man. Thanks for having me.
For people that want to learn more about iFlip, what's the best way for them to get more information?
Go right to the website. It's iFlipinvest.com. It's got the little orange F on there. I always wear the hat.
I like it. So you have it's like an athletic theme,
Yeah, it's
almost like a fanatic sort of look. Yeah.
yeah, that's our old one. We've actually evolved. That's our new one. A little
Okay.
different. Um,
It looks like a
actually,
flame.
don't tell my marketing guys, but I like the old one better. That's okay. Or follow us on YouTube. We have a ton of information on YouTube. We do live videos every 2 weeks. We do a live segment called the AI Circle. So follow us on YouTube. Jump on. If you want a demo of the software, there's a spot on the website you can say get a demo. We don't really have a sales team because we are $7 a month. And come learn about us. Come see what we're doing. Check us out.
Awesome. Well, I will include that information in the show notes. And Randy, thanks for keeping it real here today.
And
Cheers. Thank you.